This is Binghamton Now on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton and WNBF.com.
I'm Bob Joseph. This is Friday, November 1st, 2024. Let's get it going with your calls. We can cover Binghamton and beyond. Binghamton Now, 607-772-1290.
WNBF.
I'm here till noon, but I strongly encourage you to call sooner rather than later to ensure greater satisfaction. So you'll have a chance to share your thoughts and your knowledge with potentially billions of people who are staying connected with us using the free WNBF app. We begin on Binghamton's west side. Gary, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning to you, Bob. I'd like to talk about the Joe Rogan interview with J.D. Vance. He did something that a politician rarely does. He answered a question, even though there are two incredibly important subjects that I will not discuss. Hopefully some of your other listeners will. Trump talking about putting weapons on people that disagree with him, and also Biden, the White House, changing the transcript. I think those are two very important things I don't want to discuss right now. I do with the J.D. Vance interview. I looked at the USA Today, and it said five takeaways from the J.D. Vance interview. And it listed a few things: climate change, transgender things, something that they want to address. But what was addressed on that show I found very interesting was people coming into this country illegally. Okay, they didn't even mention it. The USA Today didn't even mention the illegal immigrants as one of the takeaways. Joe Rogan asked J.D. Vance, why do you think they let so many people in to come into this country illegally? J.D. Vance answered that better than I can describe it right here. So if you really want to hear it, please listen to the interview. He said something along the lines that when the people come in and they are going to wherever they go throughout the country, it adds to the population. And there are times in the United States where we readjust voting sectors. And they do that by the population. And he said in Ohio, there was a county where they had this influx of illegal immigrants come in. That's where they're living. And while they cannot vote, okay, but they're counted as population. And it changed one of the districts in Ohio. It's supposed to be favorably, to balance it out. But he felt that it wasn't very favorably. And, he also says, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is what he said, that he's afraid that if Kamala Harris gets in, that she will want to get illegal immigrants the right to vote. But he answered the question. I was like, how refreshing is that? That he actually answered the question. Have you had a chance to listen to that at all? And
no, I didn't even know it happened. I'm reading some of the
hours of a
okay. I'm looking at some of the stories, and I see here's one that apparently was just posted in the past hour or so. I really don't know about this website. I've seen some other stories in the past, and they appear to be fairly accurate, and but I can't exactly vouch for it. Times of India has a report posted, I think, less than an hour ago. Joe Rogan slams the left for editing J.D. Vance podcast clip, calls it gross. Said, let me see if I can go to the specific. So this is by TOI World Desk, Times of India, for what it's worth. Says a deceptively edited clip from the Rogan interview circulated online misleadingly, framing Rogan as challenging Vance's views on abortion in a harsher light. Rogan later called out the editing on social media. He labeled it as gross. I won't go into any further detail, but this actually touches on something that you'll hear more about in the coming weeks and months, since Donald Trump has now sued CBS News for how it handled the Kamala Harris 60 Minutes interview. And I don't think this is going to get anywhere, but, you know, it's because Trump is known to be litigious. He's suing CBS News for $10 billion over the Harris interview. I think this is, frivolous and a big waste of the court's time. But it will perhaps call into focus some of the practices of the news media as far as editing or whatever. And
why wouldn't the USA Today say, talk about he specifically? It was at least 15 minutes of the interview,
right? But
about immigration, the number one.
But here's
question.
the thing: it didn't say, and I'm looking at that USA Today piece right now by Carissa Waddick. It says Joe Rogan's interview with J.D. Vance, 5 takeaways, and I've seen this employed by other Gannett publications, including one in Binghamton. 5 takeaways on some topic. It doesn't say the most important things. It's just 5 takeaways. It's essentially a reporter has to choose, and it's difficult.
Come on. The number one thing is immigration. And
I'm not defending her choices, and I'm looking at the article I'm trying to give you an explanation of why, in this particular case, for whatever reason, whether it was her choice or an editor's decision, the immigration topic didn't appear on 5 takeaways. It didn't say the 5 most important things. If it was that, maybe the number one most important thing would have been what he said about immigration. So let's see. First, anti-trans rhetoric. Again, this is not a countdown. This is what is written on the USA Today website by Carissa Waddick. The first thing she mentions, anti-trans rhetoric. The next is Biden garbage comments. The next, climate change. Next, where was Vance during Trump assassination? Question mark. Should say Trump assassination attempt, but it says, where was Vance during Trump assassination? So now somebody at Gannett someday probably will change that online, but if they don't, historians will look back on this article posted in November 2024 and say, what? Donald Trump was assassinated? Where was Vance during Trump assassination? Should be attempt. And then the final takeaway, Rogan talks Harris. So those are 5 things. And I don't know. I didn't listen. Oh, you said it ran 3 hours.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
I don't know. So at what point during the conversation did the immigration part begin?
Early on, and it was at least 15 minutes.
All right.
I was just refreshed that he answered the question.
Well, I'm refreshed too. First of all, here's the most important thing about J.D. Vance that everyone probably should consider. He will be in 2028. It's most likely J.D. Vance will be the Republican presidential nominee, and that's regardless of how this year's election goes. I mean, obviously, if the Republican ticket wins and Donald Trump is president for 4 more years and J.D. Vance serves as vice president, well, then he'd be a shoo-in for the nomination unless something dramatic happens between now and 2028. But say if the unthinkable happens and the Republicans lose, then J.D. Vance has basically 3 years to set up his 2028 campaign. And I got to tell you, the way the guy behaves, this has nothing to do with his positions on any issue. The way he behaves he's an almost perfect candidate. He's a very, very good candidate for Republicans looking ahead to 2028. I know people are saying
he's likable.
And that's the thing. He's eminently likable. He's clearly intelligent.
Very intelligent.
He seems to support most of the key. In fact, as far as I can tell, at this moment, Vance supports Trumpism, as in most of Donald Trump's key issues. J.D. Vance, at least now publicly, seems to be in lockstep. Now, say if no matter what happens as he launches his campaign in 2027, if he wants to adjust his view on issues based on voter research, he could do that. But he's, I don't want to say he's slick JD, because that sounds like it's negative. He's actually slicker than Willie. You know, people used to call Bill Clinton Slick Willie, and I got to tell you, J.D. Vance is slicker. Based on my limited exposure to him in interviews, the interview that he did with the New York Times 2 or 3 weeks ago.
That one.
Yeah, well, you should check that one out. I mean,
okay,
it was,
I will.
And I'm sure the tone of the interview was different than the Joe Rogan interview. Here's another thing, though. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I have to raise this issue. Why, unless I missed it, tell me, have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz been interviewed by Joe Rogan yet?
All right. So, yeah, you did miss it. So what's going on there was Kamala did not want to do a 3-hour interview. She didn't want to do
So she didn't do it.
Interview. She has not done it. And
well, when is she going to do it? The election's Tuesday. When is she going to sit down for even a 1-hour Joe Rogan interview? When will she do it?
Joe Rogan will not allow a 1-hour interview. That's, I think, part of the issue. They have, hey, I want to do a full interview. I don't want to do a 1-hour interview.
Well, I respect that.
She wants people in the room with her.
Oh, no.
Yes.
No, that's unacceptable.
Well, that's what she wanted.
Well, too bad.
So
okay, well, then it's her loss. Tim Walz, when was his interview?
I don't know why he don't come on. But
well, again, this is a problem. Joe Rogan is America's sweetheart when it comes to podcasts. Everybody loves Joe Rogan because he's the
Not
podcast.
Everybody, but
no, they respect him as the podcast king. They don't agree. They don't have to agree on the issues. Maybe he
is the podcast king.
Yes. There's no one who comes close.
There are a few, but go ahead.
Who comes close to Joe Rogan in the wide world of podcasting?
Okay, so there's this guy Sean. I forget his last name. He was an ex-CIA guy. He's up and approaching his numbers. There's also Lex Friedman. There's many out there, but Joe Rogan is certainly the king.
Well, I'd say Joe Rogan is the best known. The two you mentioned, I haven't heard of, but that's okay. I'm not saying that indicates anything in particular. I'm just not really much of a podcast person. I'm a radio person. Okay. So, I personally think, and I know this reflects that I'm too old to be on the air, but the bottom line is, in my opinion, radio is still the best. Radio, live radio, unedited radio.
Yes.
No scripts.
Yes.
They come in the studio, say if Mark Molinaro or Josh Riley comes into the studio, for all they know, they're going to be on the air. It's none of the, sometimes we exchange pleasantries, or sometimes it's like, oh, hi, Josh, come on in. And you never know. These other things, even with the Joe Rogan, he is so powerful that he has a team. He has a team of people who help him, producers, researchers. And a lot of radio shows, especially at the local level, are not a product of a big team. They're a product of one person, which I think is beautiful in its simplicity.
And it's difficult. One person.
Well, it's challenging. I don't know that I would use the word difficult. I would say it's challenging. I would say, and again, this is not to minimize what Joe Rogan does. I would actually say my job here is more challenging than Rogan's job because he has a staff. I'm not saying it's more difficult. And I also am not saying I want a staff, because once you get a staff,
there's other ideas that come into
lots
play.
of other ideas, and then before you know it, you're having meetings, and you have to do, what are we going to do for the first quarter of 2025? Then you have to have at least a weekly meeting, and then maybe a morning meeting. I don't like meetings, so I'm perfectly content to do this job the way I do it. So I'm not saying I'm looking for a producer or a researcher or anyone else, to help me out here, because I think I can handle this on my own as I demonstrate on a daily basis. I'm just pointing out there are some differences between the operation now that Joe Rogan has, now that he is the almighty podcaster. And again, I marvel at what Rogan has done in a short period of time. He's taken the podcast
done very well.
Absolutely.
So have you, Bob. And I'll tell you why, because you, and like people forget this all the time, you're on a Republican station, right? So 21 hours a day, it's all Republican, nothing Democratic. You come on and you give a different viewpoint, and all of these people that listen to the radio station for the rest of the day, they want to come on and they want to put you down because you don't agree with them, So how refreshing to have someone that gives us a different voice. That's what makes America great. Is and you don't have to agree with Bob, but all he's doing is just giving a different viewpoint. And if you get angry,
but some people are frightened by it. Some people, because this program for 3 hours a day, we shut down the echo chamber that is the syndicated lineup. And I don't say that necessarily in a negative way. It's a predictable. In most cases, what Bongino and Hannity and Levin are going to be talking about on a given day is fairly predictable. Every once in a while, Bongino comes up with a twist. I mean, he sometimes is on the cutting edge of emerging news and headlines because he does tend to take a fresher and different approach than Hannity and Levin, I think, because he's newer to the talk show game. But I think people sometimes find it threatening that there's a guy on WNBF who doesn't take marching orders from wherever the place is that puts out the daily talking points.
You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, you hit it right on the head.
But that's why I think this show, and obviously I'm biased, I think this show is the best show on the station. I'm not saying that the other programs are not good. I'm saying because this is local and it's live, and it also provides access to people of all sorts of views, that this show actually, on a daily basis, maybe not every day, but most days, I think this show is the more interesting show, or most interesting show, in the fabulous WNBF lineup.
I agree. And Bob, what about, I don't understand how, now, I say shame on Tucker Carlson. And let me just say, you know what? Donald Trump's going to say stuff that's crazy, okay? And nobody, whenever he's being interviewed, nobody will say, well, gee, and like try to go against him. When he said that, he would like to pull out and point guns at Liz Cheney or whatever he said. All right. So I'm not quoting him there. It was something along those lines. Tucker Carlson just sat there. He didn't say, well, what do you mean point guns at someone? He didn't say that. And he should have said that, because that is such, look, as much as I love J.D. Vance, I cannot vote for Donald Trump because of the things that he says.
Well, and that's, the sad thing is, if the voters were choosing between Kamala Harris and J.D. Vance on November 5th, Vance would win. Landslide. Vance would win because he has the finger on the pulse of many Americans, especially those in the so-called flyover states, those that are between New York and California, where maybe not the majority of this country's population is, but Vance would win because of the Electoral College. He might not win necessarily by 7 million votes like Joe Biden did 4 years ago, but based on electoral votes, he would take a lot of states. I don't know how many states Vance would take if he were facing Kamala Harris. And by the way, if Kamala Harris is the winner in this year's election, she better watch out for J.D. Vance, because he would be, at least at this juncture, I would perceive J.D. Vance to be a very powerful opponent to go against Kamala Harris if she's going to run for a second term in 2028. I think, and because by then she'll actually have a tangible record to potentially criticize. Right now, she has plausible deniability, and I actually buy into a lot of what she's trying to present. As vice president, what power does she have? It's mainly a ceremonial role. If Kamala Harris, short of resigning as vice president, if Kamala Harris disagreed with Joe Biden on any key policy issue since January 20th, 2021, she had better not say it publicly, even at a cabinet meeting. If she was going to bring up something that she disagreed with the boss, a key issue, whether it's immigration or the economy or foreign policy, she'd better have just a one-on-one with Joe Biden, and it better be short, and it better not be very loud. And when he says something like, "Noted, now go back to your office and stop bothering me." So, but in 2028, she's going to have a record, and she's going to have to defend it probably against J.D. Vance. So, again, I know we're putting the cart before the horse, because apparently the 2024 election still isn't over yet, unless
it'll never be over.
Did you see? No, of course it'll never. It'll never be over because of the precedent that was set with the 2020 election and the insurrection. Right. No matter who is certified as the winner in January of next year, there will be about half the country will be mad, and they won't accept it.
That's right.
So that one thing right there is part of the lasting legacy of Donald Trump. I hope he's proud.
Thanks for letting me speak, Bob.
Thanks, Gary. Have a good weekend.
Get out and vote, people.
It's 9:33. Get out and vote early. Don't wait till the last minute. 607-772-1290. Bob Joseph with you. Yes, this is being broadcast from a studio in Binghamton, New York. We are not in the echo chamber, for better or worse. Binghamton Now, 92.1 FM, 1290 AM. Online at WNBF.com. As we go back to the busy phone lines, DJ in Binghamton, good morning. You're on the air.
Busy. Good morning, Bob. Happy Friday. It's a beautiful day out. What is it? 5-6 more days. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 more days. Silly season's over. Yeah, it's been fun, but, some people can't hold their own. What's going on? Today's, happy Winnebago Day. Shaw was a wonderful gift to this community, man. Glad to hear all you guys doing your part.
Yeah, there's a lot of support going on.
Yes.
A whole lot of support. That's the thing. And I really am grateful for the people in the Binghamton region who have been supporting the Winnebago effort. And so many of the people have been doing this for several years.
Yeah. And it doesn't look like we're going to have any more of these 80-degree days, but yesterday was beautiful. The day before that was beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah. Have you heard anything new? What's going on?
Well, yeah, and you know where you'll find out?
WNBF.com.
I have a couple of global exclusives.
Okay.
So you keep an eye on WNBF.com for some original reporting, and you'll be glad you did.
I will do.
All right, and have a great weekend, DJ.
Be blessed doing it. You too.
Thank you. It's 9:39 WNBF. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Well, good morning, Bob. This is Michael from Windsor. Thank you for taking my call, and happy Friday to you.
Michael, thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
I want to get away from the political issues and try to change it up a little bit, just to put something else in everyone's mind. The Special Olympics of New York has their polar plunge at Shenango Valley State Park tomorrow. It is in the town of Fenton, of course, at the state park. And I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that you can be as a spectator or you can be as a participant. And it's a great event. Last year, I did the plunge and I DJ'd for it. And it's phenomenal, the people you will meet. When we think of what we can do, play tennis, play pickleball, basketball, swimming, you see these athletes, what they do with their hearts. And all I want to say is congrats to all of them. When you meet these people, you're going to love them. So it's at Shenango Valley State Park. That is tomorrow. Registration, I believe, is at 9 to 10. The plunge into the lake is at noon. So I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that there's other things going on right now in our community. I know the politics thing is really important, but so is this. I mean, these are people that need our help and really need to be recognized. And that's my main point.
That's a great point.
I mean, and by the way, Bob, when people call in and they get on your case, they insult you, you don't know how much that offends me because you are a great host. You have a 3-hour show 5 days a week. That's not easy to do. And I congrats you for doing the job that you do so perfectly. And I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
So, and I will be dropping by another snack box.
Thank you. By the way, thank you so much. I enjoyed that fine selection of health food, and our colleagues also enjoyed it. So thank you.
I'm glad. They were so nice. The receptionist at the door, they were great, and I will show up with another one. Park in the same street. I told you I'm not going to pay downtown parking.
Well, at least you don't mind walking.
No, that's fine. Unfortunately for tomorrow, actually I'm packing up and I'm leaving for Raleigh, North Carolina, so I can't do the plunge tomorrow.
Will you listen while you're down south? Will you listen to the program?
I'll be back on Sunday.
Oh, okay. Well, then you won't miss a minute. You'll be back to enjoy the program Monday and Tuesday.
That is correct.
Great.
I look forward to that. It definitely helps make the day. Enjoy some of this beautiful weather. I wish I could get back onto the courts, but unfortunately I got to pack and leave.
Well, safe travels.
Yes, and we're supposed to have, again, next week, some beautiful weather.
Yeah. Election day looks nice and warm. Not as warm as Halloween, but almost.
60s.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is perfect. I mean, I love 60s, including the music.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
All right, Bob. Thank you for taking the call, and everyone have a great, great day.
Thank you so much. It's 9:43 at WNBF. Here's something from our buddy in Owego. Jesse in Owego writes, if no one enjoyed your radio show, they wouldn't be listening. Took me a while to get used to the transition from music radio to talk radio, and I've been hooked ever since that took place. It's the best live and local radio show in my opinion. That's why I not only listen, but call in. Thank you for the email. bob@wnbf.com is the email address. Alan from Binghamton writes, my friend from Australia left today. The people there are very concerned about our election and well-informed. They are very anti-Trump. All right, Alan. So that's the view from down under. Again, email, if you want to send us something, you certainly can. Oh, here's another one. It's from another Alan, and apparently disagrees with my assessment that the front runner for Republicans, regardless of the outcome of this year's election, probably would be J.D. Vance. Alan writes, no, Nikki Haley. So apparently he's a supporter of Nikki Haley. Well, I would say if the Republican ticket doesn't win this year, then there will, of course, be a primary process in 2028. There still could be if J.D. Vance serves as vice president for the next 4 years. There still could be a primary process for Republicans, but most likely Vance would be perceived as a front runner. Now, if the vice president for the next 4 years happens to be Tim Walz and the president is Kamala Harris, well, then it would be probably a more unpredictable primary season for Republicans in 2028. So, yes, it could be J.D. Vance. It could also, well, certainly also would include Nikki Haley. Who knows? Mitt Romney. Who knows? Could be anybody. Jeb Bush. George Pataki. Sorry. I can get away with it because it's Friday. And we can say funny things on the radio. It's Bob Joseph. Binghamton Now, WNBF. At 9:49, let's take additional contributions. Vinny from Binghamton, you're on the air.
Hey, Bob, good morning. Hey, I'll tell you, this election, there's so much involved, but you know what's going to be, when Kamala Harris wins this, how historical this country is in this whole election. Bob, if Kamala Harris wins, this will be the first time in American history that we have 7 presidents are alive. That's one of the things. It's just unbelievable how this woman, when she wins, she put together her group, her vice president, her whole administration in 4 months.
That's what I was just going to say. This would have been unthinkable just 6 months ago. If you had said that Kamala Harris is on the brink of being elected, the first woman president of the USA, people would say, oh, come on, man. And yet, look what she has done. She is on the verge of performing the most miraculous political feat in the history of this great nation.
I mean, Bob, that's why Donald Trump gave Kamala Harris money when she was running for the Attorney General in California.
See, Donald Trump actually sometimes supports good people. He doesn't always, but sometimes he does, and there's a case in point. Exhibit A.
And, as far as, guys, just remember, I know we're talking about Joe Rogan and not, sitting down to do a 3-hour interview. Please, please, please don't forget who's the one who doesn't want to have a debate.
That's Kamala a good Harris. Point. You know what? Okay. As part of a closing gambit on her part, she should today at noon, or maybe 2 p.m., because at noon it's only 9 o'clock in California, but 2 or 3 this afternoon, so more people can hear it. She ought to make this challenge, this dramatic challenge, unprecedented. She ought to challenge Donald Trump to a flash debate Sunday night at 7 on 60 Minutes. 1 hour. 1 hour flash debate, no interruptions, no rules. Leslie Stahl is the moderator. Sean Hannity could ask one question. It's a win-win. It's a win-win. Challenge him to a flash debate, and if he refuses to debate, well, the American people can understand why. Flash debate, that's what I would recommend. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't accept. He might surprise us all and accept, and it could be the most compelling hour of TV in the history of the medium.
Well, Bob, like I've said before, he's a person you have to get on stage by himself and debate. He won't do it.
Well, maybe rule out Leslie Stahl and Sean Hannity, just lock them into a studio there, the CBS Evening News studio, where it's going to be after Norah O'Donnell leaves in a few days, at Broadcast Center. Lock the two candidates in the studio for an hour and let them hash it out, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, or maybe 9 to 10. Sunday night on CBS. Flash debate. Joe in Greater Ithaca, good morning.
Yes, and speaking about the economy, that's like number one on the list. And way down on the list is climate and environment. Okay? But if you have a storm and it takes out your house, your business, your church, your fire station, your infrastructure, everything, you don't have an economy.
True. That is so true, man.
So I guess that's about it. That's about it as far as that goes.
You hit that nail right on the head. I appreciate you're making perhaps one of the most important points of the campaign that, well, some people may have attempted to get that fact across. I don't think they've been very successful. I think you managed in about 13 seconds to hit that nail right on the head.
Yeah. Let me say you mentioned Vance, okay? Now, I went on a tirade the other day about Trump, and that stands, okay? Maybe double it, all right? But as far as Vance goes, cat ladies aside, okay, I have no problem with him other than, any other Republican president that ran. Disagree with him, with what their policies were. But as far as like behavior and everything, I see nothing wrong.
No, he seems very civil.
In fact,
shockingly
that
so. I mean, you put the cat lady remark. He did try to revise the record, and I think I'm one to accept his explanation. I don't think he meant it in the way it came across to many people.
Well, the cat lady will live in infamy.
Sure, but I think his clarification since he made those remarks. Hey, it's part of sort of how he was thinking, and he explained that perhaps people who are single without kids do view the world differently than, say, people who are raising a family. And that might be, I think that's a valid point. I don't think anyone needs to be offended by it.
Yeah, so. Trump speaks in riddles, and this is a riddle. It says, young women that can, instead of a cat, get with someone and have children.
Well, hey, that's in the view of some, that's what made America great. People had families. I just heard about a family that had 12 kids. So times have changed to a degree. We'll see if the pendulum swings back. Bigger families to make America greater. We'll see. I'm Bob Joseph, WNBF. All we need now is a sign that says Binghamton now. 607-772-1290. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Bob, it's Ron from Binghamton.
Welcome. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yesterday I had watched a program briefly, and it was kind of an expose thing on crime in big cities, and they emphasized New York and some of the awful things that happen to pedestrians and people minding their own business. But and I was kind of down about that. I watched that and got a kind of down feeling. But I feel so much better this morning knowing that they're taking care of that reprobate Peanuts, the squirrel, and unfortunately, possibly euthanized him. But people who walk up to you in the street and you don't even know them in New York City, and they hit you with a baseball bat, and then they get an appearance ticket. That's okay, but a little squirrel, we got to get down and crack down on that. I mean, that is a public menace, and a little Peanuts might be, public enemy number one. So I wonder, I think the New York Police Department, I think that was in New York City, was it not, Bob?
No, I don't believe it was.
Oh, it wasn't? I assumed it was, but what, do you have where it was?
Well, it was upstate New York. I don't think the cops in New York City care about squirrels.
Oh, really? So,
I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. We have some listeners who used to be NYPD cops. Maybe they know about why NYPD would give a rat's. I can't say that.
Yes.
Why NYPD would really care about a pet squirrel. NYPD. Yeah. I don't think NYPD. The only thing NYPD does is to take care of crooks. But they even let Donald Trump run free, and he's been convicted of 34 felonies. So even some felons are beyond the reach of NYPD.
Yeah, there was if you remember, I guess it was about 2 years ago, there were two policemen, I guess they were out of their patrol car, and they were bombarded by water balloons by people on the street. Do you remember that? They were smashing water balloons.
I saw I think I saw that on the Fox.
I think one, if I'm not mistaken, one of the guys throwing balloons was wearing a squirrel costume. So maybe
was it Halloween?
No, it wasn't Halloween, and that's the thing. He had a bushy tail and was smashing a patrolman with water, and they didn't have any. They didn't even pull these guys in. Well,
I don't know. I think sometimes when it comes to NYPD, based on a specific situation, they have to decide what is the best course of action. Should they open fire on people who were doing stuff like that, or should they just, because in the end, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of law enforcement resources sometimes when maybe they have the expectation, depending on what precinct they're in New York. If you're detailed to Manhattan South, you might have a lot of other calls. Maybe you don't have a job right now, but say you say, "Oh, I'm gonna throw the book at these low-level offenders because they're doing stuff they really, really should not be doing." So you throw the book at them, then you're tied up for 2 or 3 hours down at the precinct, and it's in the meantime, people are being stabbed, shot. It could be a guy on Fifth Avenue shooting people, for amusement purposes for people who are supporting his presidential campaign. So, yeah, you have to choose your battles, I guess, if you're in a high volume, lots of calls in, if with Staten Island, trust me, that same thing had happened on Staten Island, those miscreants would have been treated differently, I believe.
Oh, you think more harshly?
Yeah. Do I think? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, they, how can I put this delicately? They would learn the pleasure, such as it is, of the premier product put out by Taser International. They would experience the momentary pleasure.
Oh, so they might use their taser on this fellow.
They might, or they might be introduced to my good friends Smith and Wesson.
Wow. Now, I was thinking if this guy is really in love with his pet, his squirrel, unique animals, all animals have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of acorns. So if he had the squirrel in his house and was refusing to let go of that squirrel and give him over, would a SWAT team show up to go in and rescue that squirrel? I'm wondering.
I don't know. You're talking about a story I don't even know about. All I know is it's not New York City. It's
not, but,
upstate New York. It's in a place called Pine City. Pine City. So I had to look it up. Of all the things, that was the one thing not on my bingo card today, talking about Peanut the squirrel. So Pine City is it's in Chemung County. So it's not that far from here. Maybe this afternoon, since the situation involving Peanut the squirrel has captivated America, maybe I'll take a ride out, because it's actually not that far from Binghamton. Yeah, here, actually, there is a New York City connection, because the kid, Mark Longo, found Peanut the squirrel 7 years ago in New York City, and then he apparently took the little Peanut squirrel up to his home in Pine City in Chemung County.
Oh.
So there is a New York City connection. There's a huge story that the New York Times did. I missed it. It was posted yesterday, but apparently my algorithm didn't realize that I love animals, so it didn't serve this up to me. But I'm reading the story by Victor Mather. Sounds like a made-up name, or maybe he's related to Eminem. Anyway, Victor Mather, has the entire tale about Peanut the squirrel. And it's so it's near Elmira, as the New York Times says, in the southern tier of New York.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
so maybe this afternoon looks like a good day for me to head out toward Chemung County, and then I can talk with Mark Longo about what happened with Peanut. And I think that would be a good story. Maybe we could get him on the show for Monday's show. We could talk with Mark Longo and get some additional insight, because I admit I missed this story. It's only, from where I'm standing, it's only 60 miles. I could be there. If I drive from WNBF headquarters, I could be there in about an hour. If I ask my friend Janine Piro to drive me to Elmira or Pine City, we could be there in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, and, it's funny, you go out there and investigate this and contact some of your connections. Before you know it, you might have trucks out there with the big satellite dishes and so on following the story. This could be something for Jennings or Lester Holt.
This could be my big break.
It could.
Dan Rather got his big break covering the aftermath of a hurricane for a Houston TV station. They saw how good he was before he started making things up when he was working at a Houston TV station. Before you know it, Dan Rather was hired to be a CBS Evening News correspondent. And here's a bit of trivia. Did you realize, or do you know what Dan Rather's first story was when he was hired as a correspondent for the CBS Evening News?
No.
Binghamton,
Really?
New York. And he went up to Binghamton in December and to do the story. And actually, was it December? It was, it was 1962.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so they sent him up, and they said, Dan, here's the address you go to on Binghamton South Side. It was March 1962. It was still winter. So they gave him the address over on Mitchell Avenue and said, go up, if you will, and cover this big story, this tragedy, and file a report. And it was a wonderful, wonderful report. The only thing he did wrong was mispronounce the name of the city. And he got in trouble. They said, good report, buddy. But the next time you file a report for the CBS Evening News, please, 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 please pronounce the name of the city correctly, okay? And
Did he say Binghamton?
well, apparently, I've never seen or heard a recording. Apparently, there's no audio or video of his report because people I know have looked for the report and they haven't been able to find it. So I don't think it wound up in anybody's archives. But yeah, he probably said Binghamton.
Now,
He wrote about this in his New York Times best-selling book, The Camera Never Blinks.
Oh, wow. Now, in that story, did the authorities take peanuts away from Longo? Do they have peanuts? Who has peanuts now?
I think it's still in the New York Daily News. I think they still, although they're classic peanuts because Charles Schultz is no longer with us.
No. You jest on an important topic here. Who has peanuts? The squirrel out there. Is it the authorities or is it the man who or the boy who befriended him? Who has peanuts?
Oh,
yeah. And when you go out there, I've got this picture in my mind. You're going out there. This guy has peanuts. He barricades himself in the house to keep peanuts. And a SWAT team shows up. And Bob is on the scene. Bob Joseph is on the scene. To me, that's like Edward R. Murrow on the Blitz in London. I mean,
the humanities.
Oh, yes.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, here's it's funny you should mention that it would be the type of story that I would wind up covering. It's funny you would suggest that because I can picture this sort of thing happening in Binghamton, or more likely Endwell. There's a street in Endwell, I won't name it, but I could see this whole saga about Peanut the squirrel unfolding in Endwell.
Uh-huh.
So, and who knows? This could be just the beginning.
Well,
so it says here, again, because I'm still trying to get up to speed. So this guy from Pine City who rescued the squirrel 7 years ago, and see, here's the problem. This turns out this was his big mistake. He turned his little squirrel into a social media star. So he is pleading with the state authorities to return little Peanut because they seized the Peanut, the squirrel. And by the way, did you hear who they also found in addition to Peanut the squirrel?
No.
Fred the raccoon. So they got Peanut the squirrel and Fred the raccoon when 6 DEC officers staged a stunning lightning raid at Mark Longo's home near Pine City outside Elmira. Mark Longo, believe it or not, is 34. He said the DEC came to my house and raided the place without a search warrant to find a squirrel. I was treated as if I was a drug dealer and they were going for drugs and guns.
You know, Bob, do you remember the movie Airplane 2?
No, the only airplane movie I saw was the original.
Well, the Airplane 2 is just as funny and crazy. And early in the movie, they show people coming into the airport, and it's reminding me here about priorities. Coming through the, the screening device that beeps if you've got a gun or a metal product. All of these people are coming through, and they've got bandoleros of weapons around them, and they have AR or AK-47s, and they make it right through. But they stop. Next person through is this old grandma, and they take her and they knock her down and they frisk her and such. So this is an analogy. You got all sorts of important things to do in terms of drug raids, whatever, and you're going after Peanuts the squirrel. Like you said, the humanity. What's
well,
next?
Here's the thing. Now, I understand perhaps the outrage that a story of this nature evokes among some people, but I guess the bigger question is if there are laws regarding people keeping wildlife without a permit, if it's against the law, why should they ignore this particular incident? Just because it's viewed as something relatively trivial? I mean, it's like jaywalking. Why have any laws at all if they're never going to be enforced, or if they're rarely going to be enforced, or if they're going to be selectively enforced? Either decide that we're going to have a law regarding grabbing a squirrel from New York City and keeping it for 7 years and then turning it into some sort of social media celebrity and allow that, or say it's against the law to do it without a permit. I think that's the biggest question. Why in this country, why do we have laws that are enforced consistently? The same with the speed limit. Why not? And again, I know almost everybody listening goes faster than 65 miles an hour on the highway. I know they do. I'm just saying, why don't we give people 2 years warning that starting on January 1st, 2027, all laws, local, state, and federal, all laws are going to be enforced consistently, always. So if you have Peanut the squirrel, or if you kill someone, be prepared to face the consequences. If there are laws and regulations, they're going to be consistently enforced starting January 1st, 2027.
And Bob, there are 4 days before the election. Do you think Harris and Trump might be wise to pick up this squirrel story and get on the side?
Oh, looking at what Trump did this week, attempting to get into a garbage truck. I mean, eventually on the third try, he was able to get the door open and he was able to hop in to the big garbage truck. So, yeah, do I think Trump is going to latch on to the squirrel story and dress up as a squirrel? Yeah, I think, some people would say, well, that'd be nuts. But I beg to differ. He could use that to basically say anybody who votes for the Democratic candidates is nuts.
I think if the Harris campaign or the Trump campaign went out and rescued Peanuts the squirrel, they still have time for T-shirts, rescue Peanuts, and maybe get some votes on that. I mean, who wouldn't side with the savior of Peanuts the squirrel? Could swing a state. Could swing Michigan.
Well, it's not, let's face it, Pine City is essentially on the border of Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania's in play, as they say. It's not just Pennsylvania, it's battleground Pennsylvania. So whichever candidate, this might be even a good opportunity for Kamala Harris, since she is losing in the bizarre campaign stunts category. I mean, Trump, definitely in the one category, bizarre campaign stunts. Trump has easily defeated Kamala Harris. So in the closing hours of this year's campaign, if she wants to try to get back in the game with bizarre, strange, inexplicable stunts, she could dress up as a squirrel and say that she'd have to thread this needle. She can't call her opponent's supporters nuts, because then that would make people, the snowflakes would get unhappy if she implied that anybody who supports her opponent was nuts. But she would have to say, we want a country free of nutty behavior for the next 4 years in the White House. She could say that and probably get away with it. Although some sensitive viewers would find that imagery to be offensive.
Yeah, but and also, if you go across the border to northern Pennsylvania, they'd as soon shoot a squirrel as save one.
You said it. I didn't say it. Thank you, Ron. You're just trying to get me in trouble on a Friday, and it ain't working, buddy.
Well, it's a good old college try.
I appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
Close. I didn't take the bait, though. Could have. 10:34. This is Bob Joseph live at News Radio WNBF 92.1 FM, 1290 AM. Stay connected using the free WNBF app. Let's go back to the phones. Tom and Endwell, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Bob. I have something I want to talk about. I want to kind of jump off what Vinny was saying, but your last caller with that squirrel, he's obsessed with that squirrel. I thought it was very funny and interesting, but talking about saving squirrels, did you see Joe Biden put that baby's foot in his mouth and then started biting on the baby's thigh?
Yeah. All right, now let's talk issues. Joe Biden, by the way, ain't running for a darn thing. So Joe Biden is yesterday's news. We're talking about the big race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. What do you think?
Vinny was saying how historical it is. And you know what? The first time, and I think I've ever heard Vinny, I agree with him. It is absolutely historical that a lady that ran for president didn't even get 1% of the votes. A lady that did nothing in the 4 years that she now speaks of. She didn't even talk about those things that she wants to do. She had 4 years to not do them, but even mention them, never mention them. It's absolutely historical that she got slammed in with no primary. And he said that she put her cabinet together in 4 months. Vinny, she got put into every position, and I guarantee you her cabinet was already put in position.
Right, so I think as I alluded to with the previous caller, I think it's miraculous how far she's come in such a short time. I mean, she started at 0, and now she's on the verge of defeating one of the most popular reality TV stars in America.
Bob, you honestly believe that she made people don't even know her?
Maybe that's why she's so popular. It's an adage that say if something bad happens and say a candidate who was, or the presumptive candidate has to leave early for whatever reason because of senility or criminality, you bring in a replacement who is not very well known to the voters. That's how you do it. Somebody who doesn't have a really big and well-known public record. It's sort of a blank slate, so you can introduce the candidate to people who know nothing about the person.
Yeah, a candidate that's involved with the Joe Biden administration.
Don't talk about Joe Biden. He's yesterday's news. He's out of the picture. We're talking about Kamala Harris, a prosecutor, versus Donald Trump, a felon, 34 convictions.
Mm-hmm. Well,
now Kamala Harris has been convicted of 0 felonies.
She's got 2 wars that were funneling billions, if not.
They're not her wars. Those wars were going on well before she had any power. She has 0 power now, by the way. You know, anybody who thinks the vice president of the United States has any power, you haven't studied history. History tells us the vice president has essentially no power, except as presiding over the U.S. Senate if there's a tie vote. And then the vice president can break a tie in the Senate.
Well, she sat in the room.
Hey, sitting in the room. I sit in rooms where meetings are conducted. I have no power. I sit in a room during the meeting. The first thing I know during the meeting is just listen and don't say anything. If you're in a meeting, most people are in meetings, you're there. You listen. You nod your head if it seems appropriate. You don't say anything. You have no power. Unless you're running the meeting, you have no power.
Here you go again.
Yeah, there I go again. She had essentially 0 power. As I say, presiding over the U.S. Senate. There's her power. And then doing the president's dirty work, the stuff that the president didn't want to do.
Oh, so why even have a vice president? She have nothing to do with.
You have to have somebody standing by in the unlikely event that the president has to leave early. Fortunately, Joe Biden hasn't had to leave early.
Oh, so we pay somebody to just sit around?
Yes, we do. Sadly, there have been instances in the history of the United States of America where, because of unforeseen circumstances, the vice president became president. It's not something anybody wants to see, but you have to have somebody. You have to have somebody ready. Hey, hold on, I got another call coming in. I don't even recognize the number. Hold on. Isn't that what? I'm tired of that. Yeah. You're on the air. Good morning. Who is this?
Martin from Binghamton. Good morning.
Oh, I didn't recognize your number. Good morning, Martin. How you doing?
It sounds like a carnival back there when you first came through. And
it's crazy. It's Friday. It's like a carnival. Things are getting just crazy around here. 4 days to the election. And I'll tell you, I don't know what to expect. I think we're going to have some November surprises the next 3 days.
Yeah, like a carnival, like Garth Hudson's organ coming through to me at the Watkins Glen. I'm looking at the poster, but that's what I remember. They impressed me the most at that little Friday afternoon morning music. But yeah, the band was phenomenal there at Watkins Glen. And I'm so glad and lucky I was there because Phil Lesh just passed away from the Grateful Dead, 84 years old. So to all the Deadheads, I give condolences. But that is not why I called. I called because that last caller there, he really reamed you the other day. And, you know, he's the same guy that, if you remember right, when Helene had already devastated those areas, and he talked about that yesterday, and Milton was bearing down. He said there was minuscule information on the weather. I mean, you know, and it's like was watching the Weather Channel all that time, and I don't know what, that's just ignorance, that ignoring. How could you not say that? But at that same time, when that was happening, now you have a crazy senator saying, they control the weather. We control the weather somehow. And then you have Trump saying that it's funny that those storms are only hitting the Republican areas, And then you have these conspiracy theorists coming up and talking about FEMA's not moving fast enough. It's not. Well, they couldn't get to these areas, that there was no roads, there was nothing, that people in the woods were stuck like that, and so then they're threatening them, and so they have no other alternative but to pull back, until they make it clear to these people, stop this insanity. This is just how it's ignorant. It's all ignorance, from the guy that doesn't know about the weather to saying they control the weather, and then Trump saying it's only hitting the Republican areas. He should have got his Sharpie out and redrew it, if you remember that old Sharpie incident, But
well, between you and me, and this goes no further, just between you and me, Martin, I don't like Sharpies. I like Sharpays. I don't like Sharpies.
Yeah, well,
I mean, Sharpays are cute, and they're friendly, and they're cuddly, and they have feelings, unlike some presidents.
Yes, and I really want to certainly make the point there about the weather, and that that guy was really rallying that day. But I mean, to not know, to look at that they're trying to blame. I don't know what his premise was. They're trying to lay blame at the Democrats or something. For
the whole thing was shocking. I don't shock easily, Martin, but I was shocked.
Yes, and hey, can I really quick say about Ron mentioned about that he rescued a dog, and then it's like didn't realize he's got to have it groomed. Well, I inherited a beautiful little schnauzer. He's sitting right here, and he has to get groomed. But Ron, how you look at it, and other people that have these, you hit the lottery in a sense. You got 3 dogs in one. You get the dog when he's groomed, then halfway through, between 8 weeks or so, you have another dog. His appearance is different. He looks different. Then, right before he getting groomed, you have another different looking dog. And so it's, if you could freeze frame which one you'd like. I mean, when he gets to the end, he looks a little too much. His eyebrows are too much like Groucho Marx. They're a little bit overhanging, and then obscure his vision and stuff like that. But I think what he was getting at is, and this is another thing to public service announcement, people who want to rescue dogs, very admirable, but that is another expense, $500-600 more, and this guy's winding down, and I don't know what I'm a dog guy. I don't know what I'll do next. I've already thought about volunteering and walking dogs,
right?
But it's
maybe you could get a little squirrel.
I got enough of them out back.
There was a guy who used to have the morning show on some station. I don't think it was in Binghamton, but it was a station. They had a strange format. It was called punk country. So country music. And then there was a genre for a time called punk. So they had this format called punk country. And the guy who did the morning show on the station, his name was Billy Squirrel. And they had even jingles. Billy Squirrel, country, punk. So anyway, just something to think about. Appreciate your call, Martin. It's 1050 WNBF. No, this is not Billy Squirrel. This is Bob Joseph at the controls of your favorite radio program on WNBF. It's 1053. Don is a trucker from Wisconsin who happens to be in Binghamton. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's up?
I was coming through the other day, and I heard your 8:30 broadcast. I was just wondering, who does the morning news?
Don Morgan.
And who writes the copy?
Various journalists.
Okay.
Was there a particular story?
Journalist?
Was there a particular story that caught your fancy?
Yes, it was about the comedian that made the bad joke at the Trump rally. And you guys reported it as Trump allies said that Puerto Rico was a floating island of garbage. What's wrong with saying a comedian at the rally? Why call it Trump allies if you're not trying to sell an agenda?
Well, I didn't do it. I didn't write it.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. But your station.
Well,
your news,
WNBF
your
news
segment.
Yeah, it was probably
segment.
Right.
Lended opinion. Right.
I don't know. I didn't hear I didn't hear the story.
I'm just saying. Let's call a spade a spade. Your news station tried to lend an opinion by saying that Trump allies said that Puerto Rico was a floating island of garbage. We all disagree with that. That's fine. Next, what's the name of the current administration? Is it the Biden-Harris administration?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then why can't
That's
we
what
talk
the name
about
of the
Joe
administration. Don't talk about Joe Biden. He's not.
Biden.
Joe Biden isn't running for a darn thing.
No, he's not. But I'll tell you what. If he was, you'd be voting for that guy chewing on that baby's foot, wouldn't you?
No. Come on, man.
Let's be honest.
You think I'm crazy?
No, I'm not. I think, here's what I think, Bob. I think you're a reasonable, intelligent guy that likes to stir things up so he has a radio show that has calls and vigor. That's what I think.
Well,
I don't think you believe the things that you say. I don't believe you. Because
you don't, so you don't know. No, you don't know how I'll vote, and I will never tell you how I vote. But I will say I've never been registered with any political party, Democrat, Republican, any party. Appreciate your call. Hope you have a great afternoon and a safe weekend. We've got more calls coming up. WNBF. First, though, they're going to be changing the clocks. Yes, they are. It seems to happen at least twice a year. And although some of us are sick and tired of changing the clocks, it does happen every autumn and every springtime. This weekend is the time that New Yorkers will be able to fall back into safety. Change your clocks, check your batteries. Joining us now to talk about this important information from the Firefighters Association of the State of New York is Michael Smith. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, you're joining us from Troy, not far from Albany.
That's correct.
Yeah, how's the weather?
It's not bad at all. It could be a foot of snow, so it's not bad at all.
Exactly. Yeah, watch out. Probably 2 weeks from now, we're going to wind up with a blizzard, the way the weather machine is behaving these days.
It could very well happen.
Yeah. So this is sort of a reminder that not just the Firefighters Association of the State of New York, but many public safety organizations put out this message a couple of times a year, encouraging people to check your batteries in your smoke alarms to help reduce the likelihood that somebody could be injured or even killed by a fire.
Yes, we like to take this opportunity to remind people to look at their smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors because they're going to have to take some type of activity with the clock. We think it's a good idea to use this as a reminder. Unfortunately, there are folks who remove the battery from their smoke detector because it either is annoying them by chirping or going off, or because the battery is needed in some other appliance that they're operating. So it gives us an opportunity to remind folks to make sure that the battery is in place, that it's good, that they've checked the smoke detector for proper functioning. And I think we can't emphasize enough the importance of having smoke detectors in every bedroom of a home, outside the bedrooms, and in all of the living areas, whether you have the upstairs, the living rooms, the basements. The entirety of the home needs to be protected with these things so that there's a good opportunity for the home residents, family members to escape in the event that a fire does occur.
Here in Binghamton over the past couple of days, actually it was a span of less than 24 hours, the city had two very serious apartment building fires. One was on the west side on Wednesday afternoon, and that left several Binghamton University students homeless. And then we had a fire in downtown Binghamton at an apartment house, and that also was a serious situation. One thing that I know from speaking with an assistant fire chief about the serious fire on Wednesday afternoon, one thing he pointed out to me, and I heard it at the scene, even as firefighters were trying to knock down the flames, there were a lot of working smoke detectors in that apartment house. He said that was one good thing. Now, it turned out nobody was home at the time. The students were at classes. But he said one thing that he felt was important to know, that apartment building may have had something, at least 10, maybe more, working smoke detectors. Some were relatively new. He could tell that they were recently installed. And he said that could have made a huge difference if that fire had broken out, say, when people were home or if it happened in the middle of the night.
Oh, unquestionably. And that, it's a great sound for firefighters to hear when we arrive at the scene of an event that the smoke detectors are operating. It helps us to understand that there's a good chance that the occupants of the building have had some warning that they needed to evacuate. And it certainly makes our job a little easier to think that maybe people have gotten out. We certainly are still going to search, but it gives us a leg up to know that they've at least been warned that something is amiss.
The good news, of course, is here in New York State that smoke detectors that are currently sold come with batteries that are not removable. So that's thanks to a law that went into effect a few years ago. So that helps to discourage tampering, because that used to be so common. And that happened in a lot of apartment buildings, I know, prior to this law being adopted.
Yes, that's correct. We had a lot of difficulty with batteries being removed. The new smoke detectors being sold have a battery with an expected life of 10 years, and it's a sealed unit, so there's really nothing to be done other than to test the smoke detector. They all have a test button on them, and so if you have the sealed units, we encourage you during this change your clock, change your battery weekend to just give the button a push to make sure the smoke detector does activate and operates properly.
And I know it's important for people to have an adequate number of smoke alarms in their home. If you just have one smoke alarm, that's probably not sufficient to protect all the occupants.
No, generally not. As I mentioned, we recommend that there be a smoke detector in each bedroom or sleeping area, one in the hallway outside the sleeping areas, and then one in the living area, typically not the kitchen, because as I mentioned, they can be kind of an annoyance if you have cooking smoke or these sorts of things. You don't want to set it off inadvertently. And certainly one in the basement area, so that all levels of the home are protected by these devices. And it certainly is a good idea, if you're capable, of having them hardwired so that when one goes off, they all go off. And that is certainly very helpful to notify occupants wherever they may be in the structure that something's not right.
Well, good advice this weekend, or even now, if people are thinking about it. You don't have to wait till tomorrow night when you're changing clocks. You could do it right now if you're at home and you have a couple of minutes. Make sure that the batteries are fresh in your smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, and just wouldn't hurt to do just a general fire safety check around the house or around your business.
No, it's a real good time of year to do it because we're entering the heating season, so furnaces are starting up and some folks are using space heaters, these kinds of things. So it's a good idea to do that check now. The holidays are coming. There's a lot of activity. There may be a bit more clutter in the house with holiday packages and the like. So it's really a good time to make sure that all of those safety systems are in proper working order before the holidays come and everybody's ready and able to keep them and their families safe.
Michael Smith, conveying an important message from the Firefighters Association of the state of New York. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks a lot.
1119 WNBF, 607-772-1290. Would you like to talk on the radio? I like to talk on the radio. I think you would too. 607-772-1290. You can call WNBF. Binghamton now. Morning, WNBF. Lucian from Binghamton, you're on the air.
Yes, Bob, I've been a registered Democrat since the 60s. Now, I don't always vote Democrat, to be honest, for the best candidate. But last week you had on your show that you said it was illegal immigrants to vote in New York State. I did a little research, and in some, I guess, New York City elections, they can vote. Has some local laws down there. But my question is this. Department of Justice suing Virginia, Alabama, and Texas to move illegals from the voting rolls. Moved them, but now they're suing those states to put them back on. Now, why would the Justice, which is Democratic right now, be on the side of the illegals instead of the American citizens?
I don't know. Illegal immigrants cannot vote in New York City's local elections. They cannot. The court intervened. Yeah, the New York City, I believe City Council approved it, and then the court said, no, you can't do it. So, New York City Council can do what they want, but then ultimately the courts decide. So, I don't speak for the courts. The courts are beyond my control. A New York appeals court agreed with a lower court decision. We determined this local law was enacted in violation of the New York Constitution and thus must be declared null and void. So, no, illegal immigrants can't vote in New York City legally. Now, could they somehow vote and get away with it? I suppose they could, but it would be breaking the law.
Right, but now the Department of Justice, which is the highest in the land, they want illegals to vote.
So they want. It doesn't mean it hasn't been decided yet. The Department of Justice is also beyond my control. So they haven't gotten their way yet. They probably won't.
But what I'm asking is, hey, would I want to vote for a Democrat? The Democrats right now are going against the American citizen.
Some Democrats are, not all. So decide which Democrats you support based on their position. If Democrats support allowing illegal immigrants to vote, then don't vote for them. If there are Democratic candidates who are against that concept, consider voting for them. I mean, do research.
Oh, the point is, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, or you're supposed to be on the side of the American citizen.
Well, I am. I'm an American citizen, and I'm on the side of all Americans.
But do you agree with the Department of Justice of what they're doing?
No, but it doesn't make any difference because the DOJ does what it wants. They don't ask me. They don't ask you. The Department of Justice will do what it wants. And in this particular case, I don't believe the Department of Justice will prevail.
Okay, but that sends a message to people in America. Say you're a Democratic voter. Why would I want to vote for Democrats anymore if you're going to be on the side of the illegal immigrants?
Well, some Democrats might be. If they're Democrats, as I said, and I'm not going to say it again, you heard what I said. So decide candidate by candidate. As far as illegal immigrants voting in New York State, they can't, and so they won't.
Oh, it's going to hurt the Democrats, right?
Well, probably, yeah. Just this call probably has cost the Democrats maybe 100, maybe 1,000 votes. This call alone, by putting this out there, even though there may be some Democratic candidates who don't support allowing illegal immigrants to vote. So, it's calls like this, that's what makes America great, that people can call talk radio and say whatever they want, even if nobody in New York State is allowed to vote if they're not in the country legally.
I have a feeling Democrats are going to lose these elections.
Well, they probably will, with callers like you and with people like Sean Hannity and Dan Bongino and Mark Levin and Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk and Joe Rogan. Yeah, if those people voted, you can bet the Democrats would get 0 votes.
They're not Democrats. Them.
No, I said the Democrats would get 0 votes. If those people I mentioned, they don't like Kamala Harris. And they say it all the time. They probably even say it in their sleep, how much they don't like Kamala Harris and how much they love Donald Trump.
Right, but what I'm saying is they're all Republicans. I'm not.
Yeah, I know. There will be some Democrats like you who will vote for Trump Vance. I guarantee it. There are some Democrats listening right now, even before you called, who will vote for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And by the way, there are some Republicans listening now who are going to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. It's the American way.
But I guess it leaves a bad impression.
Yes, everything leaves a bad impression, especially 4 days before the election. Everything that everybody has to say about the candidates they don't like, that's designed to leave a bad impression. That's how the elections work.
Okay. Well, I'm curious.
It's called the theory of negativity.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Well, I know about it. Every 4 years, we hear the theory of negativity, where instead of telling us what you can do and what you will do, you spend more time bashing your opponents and talking trash. That's how it works in America. That's the beauty of our system, the theory of negativity.
The thing is, I'm not bashing anybody. I'm just asking a Democratic administration right now would side with illegal immigrants instead of the American people.
Well, some American people probably would support illegal immigrants voting. For example, the people in New York City on city council who in 2021 passed the legislation that would have allowed some immigrants to vote in municipal elections. Now, the law never took effect. So don't worry about that. That law never took effect, even though it was passed in 2021. But so some of those Americans think illegal immigrants should be able to vote, which is their right. I mean, the right of Americans to think differently than you.
No, it's not a right. It's a law right now.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. It just hasn't taken so don't worry. Illegal immigrants are not going to be voting in New York State. They can't. It's against the law, just like jaywalking. You can't break the law in New York State. This is a law and order state.
What I'm saying is the Democratic Party is leaving a bad impression.
I know. You've said it at least 3 other times. Yes, the Democratic Party is leaving a very bad impression. Very, very bad.
I agree with you 100% there, Bob.
Yep, I know. I echoed what you said. Thank you for your call. It's 11:30. This is Bob Joseph on WNBF Binghamton, just on the side of all patriotic Americans. And also welcoming all the people who want to come to the United States. Welcome to the finest country in the history of the world. Morning, you're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning there, Bob. It's Dave from Vestal.
Yeah, what's up, man? What's up, man?
Been taking it all in, man. I've been absorbing it all. Earlier in the morning, Bob, you brought up the idea of another debate between the two, and you mentioned no interruptions, no rules, and I want to add, and no earrings. I want to put that in there too. Those aren't allowed if we do it. And you were talking about the garbage truck earlier too, Bob.
What a bunch of garbage that was.
Bob, but you know what? He can use that truck because all the criminals, all the bad people, all the garbage that the Democrats led into this country. He can drive around the country, Bob, and it'll be a new meaning for MAGA. Move America's garbage away. He can drive around with that truck and get rid of them, Bob. I like the idea, but I want him driving it.
Yeah, how come they wouldn't let him drive? That would have been a hoot.
Well, I
think it would be, how it would turn out. It would be like that media event over at Lockheed Martin Owego, where they let the kid from News 10 Now drive the prototype military vehicle. And they said to the briefing to reporters for this photo op, this vehicle is so good, it's virtually unflippable. And then a couple minutes later, they gave the kid from News 10 Now Geraldo Smith, or whatever his name was, I don't remember his name, they gave him the keys and said, go, try to flip it. And he did. And that's, if Trump was driving the garbage truck around on that wet surface, he probably would have flipped it.
Probably, Bob.
Yeah. So that would have put Michael Dukakis and his little tank stunt to shame.
Bob, what happened? That was weird earlier. What happened to Tom Fremendwell? You told him, you go, hold on. You go, wait, hold on. And then all of a sudden, a phone's ringing and Martin appears out of nowhere. What happened to Tom? Did you never went back to him?
I don't know. I think maybe he had finally reached his limit.
It was weird.
Yeah, well, this program is the weirdest. But we're not as weird as some candidates.
Bob, I could tell last night, I got to tell you real quick before I go, I could tell last night the liberals that walked by my house, I was giving out candy last night, Bob.
Yeah, did any kids show up dressed as a garbage man?
Well, no. But I have Trump stuff in my yard, and I can see.
Yeah, that probably scared a lot of the kids and their parents.
And I had on a loop. I had it down low. I wasn't blasting, proud to be American. I was playing that over and over. And you can tell they were walking by the house like, we don't want to hear that. We don't want it. No, you don't want his candy. So I thought it was funny. I had to tell you that.
All right. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. It's 11:34. Bob Joseph, proud to be an American on American radio, WNBF, 92.1 FM, 1290 AM, and streaming at WNBF.com. John from the Binghamton Plaza. Good morning. How are things at the plaza? How are things on the north side?
Just the same. We're getting new unneeded Riverwalk raised in the back. It's costing millions of dollars. But a couple of things I wanted to. Well, we do have a new store coming here. It's going to be like a Salvation Army thrift store. Their grand opening is this week, and it's called TTJ Juniors. I see they got a lot of nice, decent stuff in there. But what I wanted to say is, you're talking about smoke detectors. Lots of houses catch, a lot of them, probably more than anybody thinks. The houses catch fire because of car fires in the garage. Some starts in the garage. So you should put a smoke detector in your garage with a carbon dioxide detector, because these new cars now, you push the button and sometimes they're so quiet you don't even realize it. You don't realize you didn't shut it off. Sometimes you leave your car running in the garage. Especially a lot of older people are doing that. So I think that's a good thing for people to start doing in the garage.
That is good. That's a point I hadn't even thought about. All right.
Like you said, these electric cars and stuff.
Oh, my gosh. You know what happens if one of those Teslas catches on fire? All bets are off.
You're right.
Yeah, with those batteries. It's that's what worries me. If they're going to keep building all these batteries in these big gigafactories, what if they have a fire at the gigafactory?
All right.
Do they have enough equipment? Do they have enough firefighters to put that out?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't just throw water on them either.
No, that's my thing. Not my thing. No, it's my point. That's my point. Is if you put water on it, it only makes it worse. So what's going to happen if there's some kind of a fire at a place that's making lots of these batteries?
Right, and the vapors even from the battery.
Exactly. Yeah.
Minutes.
Would they have to evacuate the neighborhoods?
Right.
All right. I appreciate your call. Hope you have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
It's 1140 at WNBF. That's my concerns, public safety. Of course, that's assuming they're actually making batteries. If they're not really making batteries, well, maybe it wouldn't be such a big deal. Oh, I know. I was going to talk about Proposition 1. I will talk about Proposition 1 coming up. Stand by for information about Proposition 1. It's coming up here on WNBF. Hi, good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Airport Road Bob, and I just want to give you a little info on battery storage facilities and that type of product or things. There actually is a fire going on right now in Missouri that they had to evacuate the town. You can see the video on Facebook. It's on a number of pages. It's on my page. you're right. You cannot put them out once they start.
Oh, I see it. Oh my gosh! I'm serious. I'm looking at the video.
Yes, and one thing about it is that once battery storage facilities. Let's just specify they're building one on Bun Hill as we speak.
No.
Once
are they going to? Where on Bun Hill?
Yes, up there, part of the. Yes, they are up there where the station is, the electrical station.
Who's building it? NICEAG?
I honestly don't know who the builder is. I don't. It's already in progress. It passed. Bob Mack talked about it when he was on your show 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, actually he did it. But I didn't think it was for. I hope it doesn't catch on fire.
So when one battery catches fire, the only thing they can do is put water on all of the other batteries to keep them cool enough so that they don't cascade and explode and make the fire bigger. I mean, if you watch that video, it's
I'm looking. Amazing. Hold on a second, and I'm looking at a video. This is from
Missouri.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's someplace in Missouri. Yes, it's Fredericktown, Missouri, and it erupted on Friday. And so there's a video from a guy named Jacob Armies, and it shows smoke pouring from this building. Oh my gosh!
You can hear the explosions when
hold on.
The audio.
And this clip is from Storyful, and I see it's on ABC7Chicago.com. Let me just play, because I can't do this justice, but let's see if we can hear any of the action here from the batteries. Hold on.
Look at this, a huge explosion at a battery recycling plant in Missouri. A witness captured the video when it happened yesterday afternoon in Fredericktown. Smoke and fire poured out of the facility, reportedly one of the largest in the world that processes lithium-ion batteries.
Ooh, can you imagine if that happened in Endicott?
They want to build it on Airport Road. Why do you think I'm fighting?
Oh, my gosh. Maybe they'll have 3. We could have 3 lithium-ion battery storage facilities, one in Vestal, one in the town of Maine, and one in Endicott.
And this is not the first one. There was one down in New York 2 years ago, June of 2022 or 23. I don't remember to be exact. I can look it up for you. Warwick, New York. They had one.
That one I remember reading about.
But yes, Bob, that's why I'm so passionate about trying to fight this IDA project, because that was one of the original statements that they made in April of 2022, 23, that the battery storage facility or recycling plant could be part of their project. They've been going to all kinds of seminars and meetings the IDA has about these projects. So all the people out there, pay attention.
All right, thanks. Thank you, yeah. Sounds exciting. Yeah, right here, one of the stories said a fire department out there in Missouri urged residents in the plume of smoke around the fire to shelter in place. Close your windows, turn off air conditioning systems, and just try not to breathe. Lithium-ion batteries. They recycle them at that plant near Fredericktown, Missouri. Yeah, look it up. It's all the rage on the internet. Feel badly for the firefighters exposed to that. All right, Proposition 1. So I'm going to read some stuff. And this is from Spectrum Local News. You can see it at spectrumlocalnews.com. And this is a story from Susan Arbetter, widely respected, a veteran journalist in New York State, perhaps the most respected journalist at the state capitol in Albany. Proposition 1, statewide ballot. First thing you should know about Proposition 1 is that it won't provide any additional rights to any groups, although it will put into the New York State Constitution protections now provided by statute. Although the proposition would not enshrine the right to an abortion or any other substantive right into the state constitution, it would make discrimination, that is, arbitrary, unequal treatment on the basis of the exercise of those rights, a violation of the state constitution, according to this lengthy piece by Susan Arbetter. It's actually very lengthy. So what I recommend, if you want more details, including some background about the proposition, how a proposition question gets on the ballot in the first place, where you can find it on the ballot. It'll be on the back of your ballot. And exactly what it would do, look it up. Spectrum Local News, Susan Arbetter. You can trust her. So there's so much information. If I read that, we would have to be on until about 12:30. So I recommend that you search for it on your computer. It'll pop up. It's 11:47 at WNBF. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
It would be Jesse from Owego. How do you do, big
praise the strawberry and pass the ammunition. Good morning.
Oh, it's a beautiful morning. The sun's shining. Getting ready for a beer out in the back deck with the American flag by my side. Hey, by the way, Owego would have the perfect battery storage building at the former Hadco. I forget what else it used to be.
Well, I thought that wasn't that the place where they were putting in those crypto miners?
No, that's on the other side.
Oh, okay, never mind. Never mind. I know where I'm talking about. Okay, I got the two places confused. Okay.
I'm not gonna. Yeah.
No, don't go there, sister. Nope. Sorry, I brought it up. Nothing to. Hey, Jesse. Yeah. You know what I mean when I say you know what I mean. Nothing to see here. Go back to. Hey, Jesse, go back to your home. Go watch Wheel of Fortune or something. Leave us alone. There's nothing to see here.
Sounds like Naked Gun. Jeez. Man, oh, man. You know what? Yesterday was pretty good. Who was that talk show guy on WHRW?
Well, Bob Kingsley.
Yeah, that was good because I actually got a kick out of him when he said, you know, Bob, you're not the only game show in town. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right. It's not the only game show in town. It's the best show in town.
Yeah, I think he said, I'm not the only game in town. And then I said, well, I'm the best show. And obviously I'm going to say that because I have an ego the size of the state office building.
Well, so do I. I'm small, short, left-handed, and Irish. I got a lot against me.
Well, you know what they say about people in their microphones.
All I can tell you is that I don't have small hands.
Well, this is what an expert, a microphone expert, this is what she had to say.
You know when he's Mr. Tough Guy, when he's standing behind a microphone by himself.
No, that wasn't. That was Donald Trump. That was former President Donald Trump. Let's play that again. This is the Republican candidate for President, Donald Trump. He had something to say about microphones and the people who use them.
You know when he's Mr. Tough Guy, when he's standing behind a microphone by himself.
You know, and that sounds kind of, it hits too close to home because here I am standing behind a microphone by myself in a little studio, a glass and steel and concrete enclosed bunker in Binghamton. So it sounds as though he's actually spying on me.
You know what? I was going to visit your radio station, but then I got some advice from Sir Gerald Smith here at the Tioga County Historical Society. You can push the button to go down 7 stories, but unless you have that special key, you got to walk up all the stairs. Am I correct?
There's, I can't talk about that on the air, but we do have measures in place. We'll just say that. You know, one thing that reminds me about the elevators, and I can't talk about the elevators here because Well, we just can't talk about the elevators here at the Binghamton Now building, but I will say this. When they were tearing down the old WNBF building over at 50 Front Street, there was a Binghamton Now listener, and he was so kind. I think he was working with the demolition crew, and he spotted, as they were getting set to tear down the old Sheridan Hotel at 50 Front Street.
I know.
Yeah, he salvaged a button from the elevator, and that elevator had all the buttons, I think 1 through 5, and then the basement, and it had a special button that actually said WNBF, and that button was the one that took the elevator directly to the beautiful WNBF broadcast complex when it was at 50 Front Street, and he was so kind. I still have that button, and I don't know if he pointed out or maybe I pointed out, I bet that button was touched by Bill Parker and Bob Buchanan and Bernie Fianti and Skip Church and even Dick Clark. Because remember, Dick Clark was one of the first guests when WNBF TV started broadcasting from 50 Front Street. They did their National Dance Fest live from Binghamton in 1959, and so I bet that button that I have that says WNBF, the elevator button from the historic 50 Front Street building, the old Sheridan, I bet that was touched by all those people. Oh, and Susan Jo Candiotti, when she was in Binghamton.
If you want, my daughter is a specialized picture framer. She does all kinds of stuff. If you would like that button framed, I think that'd be a great thing because you can just look at that and remember the memories of the day, Bob.
All right. I might do that because I have a collection of a few other media, historic media things from Binghamton that I might put, and then I could have sort of, maybe I'll actually donate them to the museum. What's the Binghamton Broadcasting Museum over on the west side? That'd be nice so people could see this stuff. Back when radio was radio, before we were all replaced by AI.
Yeah. Hey, I've got one more thing for you. I had to do some business at the Security Mutual building, so I walk in and I talked to the security guard, and I said, I remember when WNBF was here. He folded his arms and looked at me with a stern look and said, WNBF was never here. I was like, wow. Apparently he doesn't remember his fly.
Well, it's been quite a while since we were there. Were you ever at WNBF when it was there at the Security Mutual building?
Yes.
Okay, so you remember what it was like on the 5th floor. So you know what it's like now. Have you ever been there at Hinman, Howard, and Cattell to see what they did? Back when we were there on the 5th floor, it was nice. But then we left, and then Hinman, Howard, and Cattell took over the 5th floor. Did you see what they've done with it?
I have not. No.
Oh, my gosh. We had a nice place. Our place was great. We were so proud of our place when we moved in to the Security Mutual building, and it was so cool. But then when we left to move here to the beautiful Binghamton Now Tower, Hinman, Howard, and Cattell expanded, and they took over our old space on the 5th floor, and it's incredible. Oh my goodness! Well, it's the most beautiful office space in the tri-state area.
Well, if Town Square Media was smart, they'd move you back there.
Well, you answered your own question.
I did.
Thank you, Jesse.
Have a great weekend.
It's interesting to see how you can get fired in the final 20 seconds of a program. Well, it can be done. I'm Bob Joseph. I plan to return Monday morning from 9 to noon. Have a good weekend. And keep listening to News Radio, WNBF, and WNBF.com.
There's a